4 years ago, I thought this was going to be the end-all be-all to the fight capes. That was a 3 combat fire cape, the lowest combat in the game. Now 2 others have achieved as well, being Exact and Port Khazard. That was though a 3.9 combat level fire cape with 3 defense. And the flaw in that is we basically had to poison some of the 180s by flinching them in order to kill them, because some of the wave solves just weren't possible with shield tick eating mechanics or HP regen tick eating mechanics, and the 180s do heal themselves under half HP, making those very impossible to deal with on many of the waves. So none of our 3 combat accounts with fire capes even showed up on the skiller high scores, and therefore I don't know, I don't really want to play a skiller that doesn't show up on those high scores. I have new accounts now as well that have Priests and Peril and Fremennik Trials done, meaning I can do some crazy clue steps, possibly even go for a Bloodhound pet, go for some PV and bossing pets, and just skill and show up on the skilled high scores. But I don't want to do this, and I don't want to play this account unless I can somehow get a fire cape on my back, because, well, that's what I'm known for. And no one yet has done a all-1 combat stat level 3 fire cape. In fact, I made a sort of precursor video to this video a few months ago. I'll link in the description below, where I attempt to find a way to actually keep my stats at level 1 and do a fire cape at 3 combat, which is a lot harder than you may think. The majority of that video was theory crafting, and it left on a cliffhanger, and I'll just say this in short. The cliffhanger is, it didn't work. I couldn't figure out a way to get a 3 combat fire cape with all 1 stats. The wave solves just weren't there, and the current items and abilities of a level 3 account weren't enough to push through an all level 1 combat stat fire cape. Until maybe now. So in today's video, I'm going to go over the hardships, the niche mechanics that you have never seen before, a race against time, using military personnel to help myself and my internet connection, all kinds of crazy things, driving through an F4 tornado, and all of this just to pursue a level 3 all-1 stat fire cape. And this was by far the hardest task I've ever taken on in this game. Physically, mentally, this was a challenge indeed. If you take away nothing else from this video, take away this, as nerdy as it sounds. Don't ever give up on something you really want to achieve and want to pursue. And even if it seems like God himself is fighting against you to give you a destiny that just says, okay, it's not time, this is not happening now. Do everything you can, every last bit of effort, and even if you fail in the end, you can say, okay, I gave it my all. Over 3 times, I pretty much said I was quitting this goal. I was going to make a video on the failure of this goal because I had wasted 2 weeks and I just had no good content of a real achievement, but I did have a lot of testing and experimenting going into this video, even though I had failed, and it short term wasn't my fault because of my internet connection and other problems I had faced on this journey. So it was very disappointing. I had even told my thumbnail editor, I'm like, hey, the video title of this is going to be God didn't want me to have this, because it really felt that way. But I kept thinking of more ways to work around the conflict and the issues at hand, and I even impressed myself with my ability to pursue down different paths and finally overcome everything just in the nick of time. I'll get into the nick of time part in a little bit, but this is actually insane to look back on and to realize what happened here. All because I just wanted to play this account, and this is my literal dream account to play, even more so than the defense peer, so I will be playing a lot more of this account. As well, I'll even be playing this on Kick, which I'll link in the description below. We are now contracted to Kick officially, and I'm probably live streaming at the time you're watching this video, so check me out there, follow me on that platform, and I hope we have some great future videos with this account. But today, let's go over the crazy adventure I went on to overcome this grind and learn some very niche things about the game. Of course, today's video would not be possible without our sponsor, boot.dev. I'm not even kidding, I paid a lot of money for router troubleshooting, as well as ISP technicians coming out, and even rented out an Airbnb in this video, you'll see, as well as spent a lot of gas money. So thank you, boot.dev, for funding this adventure. Boot.dev is basically building a smart way to master backend development by tackling the hardest problem with e-learning, which is boredom. The platform uses tactics learned from modern game design to push ambitious students towards their goal, which is a career in back-end development. You will learn back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. The crazy thing about boot.dev though is it's online, self-paced, and it feels like a captivating RPG game. When I say it's like an RPG game, you will literally earn XP levels, achievements, and complete quests to get a top spot on global leaderboards. They also never want a student feeling like they spent money on something that isn't helping them, so they offer a free demo of every single course and its interactive features, as well as a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. Not everyone has the means to pay for a membership, so literally all of their content is free to read and watch in guest mode. A paid membership just unlocks interactivity and the game that goes with it. Click the link in the description box and use my code Rendi to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. That's 25% off your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription you choose.
If you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice.
Okay, so why was this challenge so difficult and why hasn't it been done till now? Well, there's a lot to cover in this video, so let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, some of the things to overcome were explained in the last video I'll put in the description below, but basically, we have to figure out a way to kill the 180s. This has always been a problem for level 3 fire capes. There have been some solutions in the past, such as shield stalling and melee ticketing some of the waves, but this is not accessible for all of the waves and how they're routed out, unless you have like an insane inventory that has like thousands of slots, and you can't use poison dynamite here to negate the XP because poison dynamite isn't stackable. It's super unreliable. You'll have to use, I think on average, about 60 poison dynamites with 1 stats to even hit a singular 180 and poison it. So obviously we don't have 60 inventory spaces, and even if we did, we'd need to do that about 30 times for all the 180s throughout these waves. Also, shield ticketing has been patched, but Porkazar did find a new method with HP regeneration to basically overcome the 180s on some waves, again, not all waves, so you still had to get some forms of XP, which was defense at the time because that was the lowest combat leveling stat to get up. And that's why all these accounts have 3 defense, and why they're all 3.9 combat instead of 3.4 combat. I'm going to try and keep all of my explanations for what went down in this video super concise and not super elaborate, because if I try to explain every faction of what went into this level 3 fire cape, like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, this would literally take about a 3-hour video to explain. So we're going to go ahead and summarize some points as to what we're looking for, and that is right now we're looking for a way to kill 180s without combat XP and or minimal combat XP, because we do have some XP to spare between level 1 and 2 and 3 stats. Still not enough though on average for the normal process now, which is HP tick eating. So a couple things here for the noobs you can skip over if you're not new here to about 1 minute from now is I'm going to be tick eating pretty much every high level NPC that you can. If an NPC uses range or mage, you can eat between the projectile where it calculates the damage on your HP and where it actually hits you. Therefore, you can keep the hits from these NPCs low and survive every time as long as you perfectly time a tick eat. So I basically would have to tick eat for around 20 hours straight for every high level NPC. For the lower level NPCs, I would just have to out eat them, hopefully with purple sweets. Sometimes they can out hit purple sweets though, even with a lot of defense bonus. So one plan I would have to overcome is getting a lot of defense bonus on my level 3 account to try and minimize as much Guthix rest or a second way of healing and save inventory slots, because sweets weren't always enough, but if you had the right defense bonus, sometimes were, because the level 22 NPCs can hit 4s on you. Sweets heal between 1 and 3 HP on random. I'm also going to be using, of course, rotation 2, which I always use on all of my fire capes because I'm just so familiar with it and I've been using it for years. So I'm also having to use combo tick eats because my internet and my ping is not the greatest. I could time a purple sweet eat to overcome far away NPCs running into their closer zone. I labeled all of the NPCs with radius markers, so the most outside line is basically going to be where the NPC can attack me, and as soon as I see that outside line hit my account, that's when I need to run instantly, because if I mistime that, I actually mistime everything and it will overhit my HP a 3rd time instead of just 2 times. So it's going to overhit HP because it's already got a projectile in the air and that hasn't hit me yet from far away because of the delay time, and it's going to be calculating my HP on what it was before before the first projectile hit me. So I'll eat a purple sweet, for example, run towards the NPC, and then after the first damage, I'll then eat something that's at least double the HP of the first item, being the purple sweet, meaning that's going to be Guthix Rest or a fried onion in this case. Yes, you can cook in the fight caves. I took onions out of sacks and made them into fried onions that were 5 HP each, the same as Guthix Rest in a lot of these cases. But I will need a higher HP healing food, and I will need to time my runs towards the NPCs within the second line I marked on radius markers, so I can actually not get overstacked and so that his delay from his attack isn't too long. So that's kind of how I lure things into places, meaning I have a limited inventory and a limited amount of combo tickets. I got to utilize my inventory as much as possible. I'll get into a mechanic later that actually increases my inventory space and was actually completely necessary for this cape and is ridiculous in itself, but that's something to look forward to as well. How did I damage all these NPCs? If you're new here, well, I used a recoil, and you might be saying a recoil only has 40 charges, but there was a mechanic I found back in about 2019 that's still in the game, and it's not even really an oversight. It makes sense. Whenever you put a noted ring of recoil into suffering, even if you don't equip it, it resets the recharge on the recoil you have equipped. I can't equip the suffering because it has a 75 HP requirement, and I'm level 3, so obviously I'm 10 hit points, but I don't need to equip it in this case. Whenever using the noted ring of recoil on the ring of suffering, it puts the charge of the one you're equipping back up to 40 each time. So I just have to make sure that I recharge the ring before I get 40 hits of damage on each of these NPCs, or else the ring of recoil breaks, and that's kind of why I bring an extra ring of recoil in this case. This third line is the line I have to get within to reload the ring of recoil. I have to get closer to have the clearance of 1 tick to put 1 ring in that ring. These projectiles, they don't allow you to open interfaces, and the closer you are, the less projectile clearance there is, so it allows you a tick after the projectile hits you to add an extra 1 noted ring of recoil into the ring of suffering, which then recharges the ring you're equipping back up to 40 full charges. So just getting into these zones was very difficult, and making sure I timed my ticket as well as a ring of recoil addition to the ticket was very difficult in some cases, but not the worst thing in the world. There was a wave where this was complicated because I couldn't actually get close enough to the NPC to refill a recoil, so I would have to bring an extra 5 recoils on this cave to just entirely burn through to take out a 360, or else if I got too close, this 90 would overshot my HP with the 360 on me as well, and I couldn't even really refill the recoil because that's 2 projectiles coming at me. So a lot of advanced wave luring was involved, as well as combo tickets and normal tickets, as well as the ring of suffering with the noted rings of recoil. Now that's the noob stuff. The noob stuff has been gotten out of the way. Sorry if I've skimmed over that a bit, but that's all back in my old 3 combat fire cape if you really don't understand what's going on. And now we need to figure out how to deal with the 180s. And this is where something crazy happened. So around the end of April, I had a message from a friend, and that was that he saw a 1 defense person wearing echo boots. And I thought about it, I looked back, the echo boot poll didn't have a defense requirement included on the question. The skill guide didn't have echo boots listed, even though it had every other boot listed. So I was assuming maybe the echo boots were intended to be for, any defense, because they're pretty useless, to be honest, as they are. And maybe this was like a hidden perk of the boot. People on Reddit literally have been complaining about how bad these boots are over the last few months since they came out. So I was like, well, maybe this is what they're really intended to be used for. Also, the official OSR's wiki at the time didn't even have a defense requirement listed on the boots, like they did for every other boot in the game. And the Echo boots were an entirely separate item from the Guardian boots, which they're upgraded from. But one could argue they're upgraded from the Guardian boots, and the Guardian boots require 75 defense. They have plus 30 defense bonus, but honestly, adding 30 defense bonus to a 1 defense account is only like upping your defense from level 1 to 2 if you do the calculation on it. Defense bonus isn't insane unless you're doing something insane like me over a long period of time. So yeah, there was no defense requirement on Echo boots and no real official statement on it for weeks, even after this was a very well-known thing by probably thousands of people. So I brought it to a JMod's attention and asked him, is this intentional or what's going on with this? Never got a response, unfortunately. So I was like, whatever, I'm gonna go do it, see what happens. It might get changed, who knows? We're gonna be on a tight time schedule here. I could be in the middle of fight caves and they could take these things off me at any time. So I put on a pair of Echo boots and went into the fight caves on a main and tested out what might be a possible way to kill the 180s with these boots, because they do provide a recoil effect that's AoE damage. The problem here was the AoE damage only goes to the southwest tile of an NPC. This made me have to even use more complex lures for certain waves, but in the end I was testing things and things were looking up from here. The clue scrolls last on the ground for an hour, so I tested around with using red X's and an hour-long clue scroll on the ground to inflict damage to the southwest tile of an NPC using another NPC, as you can see here. I later found out this wasn't completely necessary, and really there was easier ways even to overcome this challenge. But when I say easier, it really wasn't that much easier, and it was extremely frightening, and this took me over 9 attempts to complete. Maybe it was a race against time, so I had to get on my A game, test all the waves, solve them, and found it was theoretically possible to do this cape, and I had all my wave solves on a notepad after about 12 hours of testing on this main. Here is pretty much what I found out about taking care of the 180s and minimizing XP. The Echo Boots could be utilized with other NPCs near the 180s, near the southwest corner of the 180s, and this could be done by inflicting damage on myself on my level 3, back onto the 180s, 1 damage at a time, making this a relatively long process and a scary one at that, because as I mentioned earlier, these level 22s can easily out-hit 1 defense and 10 HP, even if I'm constantly eating purple sweets, because the purple sweets heal from 1 to 3 randomly, and the NPCs can hit up to 4. So a level 22 can hit a 4, 4, 4, and my purple sweet will never out-eat the level 22. To mitigate some of this, I decided to put my account on defensive mode whenever taking a level 22 near the 180. And I would align up everything perfectly, always hold the 180 off till the end on the waves, and basically use this 22 or another NPC like the Ranger Mage I'll show later with some very unique instances to recoil off damage on the southwest tile to the 180. And that's going to be achieved through very specific pathing and eating, as well as getting as much defense bonus as possible on this account. So I did end up going to do Varrock Diaries to get the Varrock Plate Body. I ended up going to do Mountain Daughter to get the Bear Head, but I noticed some of this defense bonus was actually too much, because I needed less defense bonus for the level 90 Rangers, because every time I would eat to full and they hit, say, 3 zeros in a row on me, I couldn't tick eat a projectile damage. It maxes a 13, therefore I would have to waste a dose of Guthix Rest, which is another thing I did. I went through one small favor and got the access to Guthix Rest. So I would need to find a perfect median zone between having too much defense bonus and too little. Looking back, the Bear Head really wasn't necessary, and neither was the Varrock Armor 1, even though they did have a lot of defense bonus. And the problem with that was I was swapping between Jester and Berserker Necklace whenever taking on the Rangers, but I was also swapping back the defense gear, and it was just taking up a lot of inventory. I eventually minimized down the gear needed to about 2 slots, being a Jester top switch along with a Berserker Necklace switch to lower my range bonus. Jester actually has negative range bonus along with the Berserker Necklace, so I was wearing Jester in many of these instances. Based on which account I was using at the time, I had to go through several accounts because of failures and because of, well, disconnections, as I'll talk about in a little bit. And yeah, I basically didn't want to do the Varrock Diary 100 times, so I was going through different accounts trying to minimize my XP, because I did have to utilize some XP for wave 15 and wave 30 to actually stab the 180s, because there was no other level 22s or NPCs around to recoil off of with the Echo Boots. So unfortunately, you know, that was just the thing that had to be done, and I could go 30 hits dry for a poison and ruin a level 3 account and get 2 attack strength. Luckily that never happened, but there were those 2 waves that were very scary, and you never know what can happen with those. Fortunately, on most of my attempts, the XP was on average for a poison, as a poison with a 1 hit is a 1 in 4 chance. So that means on average I'm going to be spending 54 combat XP in order to get the poison off on 3 NPCs, being the one on wave 15 and the other 2 on wave 30. There were other waves I could utilize poison on, and this would make the wave easier, because some of the solves, even with the Echo Boots, were very sketchy. For instance, look at this one. I had to use a range and flinch off of the melee at just the right time to make the Echo Boots recoil off to the southwest tile. That's why I also brought a Carrot Sword, because it is now negative 100 all stats and guarantees a 0 hit, making it so I don't waste any more combat XP than is necessary for this cape. Also, the melee flinch delays the 180's attack by 2 ticks, just enough time to get back to the spot between each flinch and wait for another flinch to then recoil off 1 more damage at a time, taking quite a while to finally kill the 180. With the Echo Boots, you have a 3x3 area around your character, so technically I could be diagonal of the southwest tile and this would still work. Another issue I found was the 180s would not heal the 22s, and this was for some reason only if the 22s were not directly to the west of that southwest tile of the 180. I did not know this was a thing because he would heal them before he was under half HP, but after that he would prioritize himself unless the NPC was literally right next to a southwest tile. So that involved even more advanced pathing to look into and to route out for every single 180 wave. Part of the mechanic is I didn't want to kill the 22, so I would take off my recoil, just use the Echo Boots on them. I would get them to under 5 HP, so the 180 would heal them instead of himself, and then I would have them heal the 22 back up so he could then recoil more damage onto the 22 as well as the 180 by stepping in and out. Now, I didn't want to step out at 4 HP because I could get extremely unlucky here and the 22 could heal back up to 5 HP and the 180 could then not heal that NPC and instead just whack me and one-shot me. It was a very scary experience as well. I just had to watch my HP and sometimes combo eat purple sweets into Guthix rest when the 22 was on me if he did start stacking 4 damages on me. So I did end up burning through a lot of Guthix rest I wasn't planning on throughout this entire process, as well as using them once again for tick eating a ranger if he hit me for 3 zeros in a row and I hit full HP, because you can't tick eat at full HP once again. So this is where you see that Jester really came in handy, because Echo Boots do have a fat defense bonus, and against the Rangers, I don't want a fat range defense bonus. So I would wear full Jester in some cases with a Berserker necklace, and that would actually put me at negative range bonus instead of positive, to where I didn't have to waste as many Guthix rests. So I would always save the 180s and a 22 for last and do some really kind of messed up pathing to basically get the 22 in front of the 180 on the western side. Sometimes I would have to run around the entire fight cave to set this up, sometimes even twice, because they just wouldn't get in the right order. And it was very scary. There was a couple of times I came super close to the 180, as you can see here on the true tile marker. If it was just like one tick off on my pathing, for a lot of these waves, the 180 could have easily one-shot me on the lures for these. Some of these waves were so stressful and too close to comfort that I had to relog and literally redo the entire wave because of a misclick or a missed time on the run.
Choose your own pain. The pain of discipline, or the pain of regret.
So along with the weird 180 and 22 lures, there were also a few waves where I did some weird 360 with 180 lures, as you can see here, where I run around the 360 while literally tick eating it, and then path just southeast of the 360 but next to the southwest tile of the 180 to recoil off the 360's damage to the 180 in a safe zone. There was also other instances where I used red X's to lure out 90s or 360s next to the 180 and then stood just diagonal enough to get into the line of sight of these projectile NPCs and once again use their attacks to recoil off damage to the 180s. These waves were a little bit quicker and actually less scary than the 22 waves if it wasn't for my internet, because I would have to stand in front of these NPCs and perfectly tick eat them for hours at a time, and even the slightest lag or disconnect, as we'll see here in a minute, could end up meaning the entire failure of that run and even the account if I wasted too much combat XP on the 180 waves and ruining an account that has Priest and Peril done, as well as literally Fremennik Trials as a level 3. Well, I only have a limited amount of these and it's not going to be a good look if my internet keeps DCing or I legitimately die on these capes. I have a limited amount of attempts and we're probably on a time constraint. I don't know if they're going to change the Echo Boots or not, but if they do, it's probably going to be soon rather than late, because there's thousands of people using them at this time, walking around with them with one defense. So yeah, having a bad internet connection, living in the middle of nowhere with a monopolized ISP and everything else being wireless, well, that's not a good situation to be in whenever you're sitting in front of NPCs having to perfectly tick eat them for over 10 hours at a time. And I learned this the hard way. Now, there were some lags I did survive, like this one here somehow and got chanced, but just wasted more time and later on DC'd as well. These lags were like super short, like 10 seconds max, but they would come out of nowhere and there was no warning sign. I wouldn't lag prior to them at all. As well, they would last just long enough to where I couldn't tick eat a hit, and they would always be at the perfect moment where I wasn't in a safe spot and would almost always kill my account. The people I was on Discord with were telling me, dude, how are you not punching a hole through your computer right now? You're wasting XP on very rare accounts, only of which you have 2 of, and to top it all off, it's not even your fault, and you're wasting hours of time on something that could be changed at any second and could be therefore impossible for the rest of your life. I know. I must have the patience of a madman, because I did not stop here. People I was on Discord with were like, call your ISP, get a service tech out there. So I called them, demanded one to come out the next day. He came over and he said there was thousands of error codes on my modem. He said the decibel hertz coming into my house was lower than the standard. He put a filter on there, he upped the decibel hertz. He then took care of the error codes on the modem by literally replacing all of the cabling, all of the outlets inside my entire house. But unfortunately, it seemed this didn't fix the problem. I thought it did, and then 8 hours later after he left, the error codes came back, and well, this happened here, and I DC'd again. At this point, a post had been made on Reddit saying that these boots didn't have a defense requirement, and some consensus was, maybe it was intentional, but the majority of it was they're probably going to change this and put a defense requirement onto the Echo boots equivalent to the Guardian boots. This was on a Friday, and the next update was possibly on a Tuesday. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to keep sending it, and out of frustration and out of panic, I just kept sending it and getting caught up and rushing it and dying even on low tier waves, as you can see here, not even from lags, just from being an idiot and not timing my eats and not using Guthix rest when I really had to. It's very easy to die on these capes. Many people don't realize, even whenever you're not taking a simple step or a simple mitigation of eating at the right time or running at the right time away from something as small as this level 22, which killed me, as you can see here. I reconsidered my options and thought, you know, maybe this was just destiny. I'm hopeless. I've had my ISP come out. There's nothing I can really do, and I'm bound to lag and waste my time and more XP on these super rare accounts. It's not really worth the continuation. So I took about a 24-hour break, played back on my defense peer for a bit, which I hadn't been on for weeks. At this point, I'd wasted over 60 hours, including testing and failed attempts. But I found out later that this was something I really wanted, so I reconsidered. because playing my defense spear at the time honestly seemed super boring. I was like, I want a new account to play on. Let's be honest, I really want a level 3. I'm known for doing low level things. I want a level 3 I can be proud of, and my friends on Discord convinced me to try another route. Here's the introduction of the character, Abi. This guy is a homie, he's a real one, but also he's a high-ranking military personnel with connections to people in networking at his top secret military base, which I won't say exactly where, but is in the Pacific. And this guy knows his stuff. He made me run tracer T's, he made me release my DNS, renew it, he made me go through all the diagnostics on my modem, and you know, he basically realized that this was a modem problem and your ISP is going to have to change your modem. Unfortunately, my ISP couldn't get me a new modem for what was over a week, and I figured at that time it would be too late anyways. So he went to some of his networking companions and had a round the table meeting with top secret people in the US military. I'm talking 5-star generals, baby, and they gave him some top secret information on what I should do, and that was to go get a router to offload some of the air codes onto, and possibly, even though I might lag, it's not going to be a total disconnect next time. So I took my Discord video camera, went to Walmart, had him help me pick out a router, and then came back home. He helped me set it up. With my luck, this router was literally a used one in the box that had been repackaged, had an old SSID card with the business that was located down the street on it. But I got it working finally after a lot of issues with that, taking over my default gateway. He helped me through all of this. The people on Discord are real homies, and especially, you know, the top secret military personnel. Shout out Abi. If you know him, then it's the only person you'll ever need to know. I'm just going to say that. So this did seem to work. As you can see on the ping grapher, it did tend to spike up, but there was not enough lag to actually make me DC, and I was able to tick eat for a long period of time. And I even got to wave 43, which was the worst wave out of this entire cave because of the extra 5 recoils being needed and the weird luring and positioning of everything. I would have to start out at full HP, then tick eat up to a higher HP, drop my HP back down by the time I ran to the northern spot, then combo tick eat run into the 360 zone at just the right time, but I could not refill my recoils because if I take one step forward here, then the 90 will attack me, and that's why this wave was so complex. But that wasn't the end of it. After the 360 was dead and after I wasted 4.5 recoils, I also would need to take down this 90, which is in super close range. The closer you are to these NPCs, the less projectile clearance there is, and there was literally 1 tick of projectile clearance to tick eat from this 90 this close up. And I practiced this and everything seemed fine, and even while I was doing it, I didn't notice any errors. All my timing was exactly the same. I mean, watch this. As you can see, I'm tick eating perfectly, and about halfway through the 90 kill, bang. Somehow, even though my clicks were timed exactly the same, it was as if they weren't. The purple suite registered before I walked out, and the 90 one-shot my HP and killed me. So I actually had a legitimate failure here, not due to frustration or internet lag, but I was still confused because I didn't feel like I really necessarily messed up. Another issue is I found out the rock kick wasn't going to be good enough to get my HP down fast enough in order to make the run back to the 360, so I decided to go do part of dig site quest on this account and get an explosive potion for a faster method of getting my HP back down to 1 for the combo tick eat run towards the 360. I saved myself barely with a Phoenix necklace during this run because I wasn't able to actually get my HP down fast enough, but yeah, the explosive potion without the Phoenix necklace is going to be a lot safer of a bet, as I could have been hit a 0 on and that thing not even activated on my run into the NPC, and therefore I could have just procced a bunch of damage and died anyways. So I went back in again for like, I don't even know at this point, like the 6th time, 7th time, 8th time. I've lost count. I went back in, had some lag spikes, but nothing that DC'd me. Everything was seemingly well. I had a new plan this time to actually mitigate whatever that was. It was like almost my ping was too good. It was a ping I wasn't used to, maybe from the new router. I don't know. He made my internet too good. He was just being too good to me. So I had to have a backup plan, and at this point, I once again thought about quitting, but I realized there was another way around the problem at hand, even with my weird internet and ping and super inconsistent timing of tick eats, whatever it was. I don't really know what happened still, but I found a workaround, and that was the looting bag. Now typically, if you destroy a looting bag in PvP, the contents will go onto the ground except for food, phoenix necklaces, butterflies, all that good stuff, you know, that can maybe heal you in a remote location, except for herb tea mixes. I would make Guthix rest up until the last step and actually utilize the looting bag to basically give me an extra 11 Guthix rest, as well as hold some extra gear like my longbow I'll be needing for Jad, and some more tank gear like iron plate legs. From here, I would then destroy the looting bag after taking care of the 360 on wave 43 and access more Guthix rest. This would give me enough Guthix rest to not only finish out the cape for all the combo ticket lures and strange 22 and 90 flukes I would have to use the Guthix rest for, as well as give me enough rest though to take care of this 90 here without having to ticket one singular time. I would just purple sweep back up to 10 HP, Guthix rest to 15 HP for every single recoil of the 90, and this would therefore allow it to be impossible for the 90 to kill me, and I would recoil back 1 or 2 damage, 2 being if the 90 hit me for over 10 damage, which was optimal because then I would be exchanging 1 Guthix rest for 2 damage instead of 1. On this wave, I had to make sure I hopped over, destroy the looting bag after I took care of the 360, burned through those recoils, and then made more Guthix rest to hit over the max hit, being 13 of the 90 for each walkout and each recoil. This therefore allowed me to kill the 90, and I was able to proceed through the worst wave, being 43, with still some Guthix rest left, just enough to take care of the 22s and 90s hopefully later on, as well as using some of those for combo tickets for wave lures from Purple Sweep to Guthix rest when running into projectile zones of those higher level NPCs. But although Al Gaib's solution up until this point worked perfectly, for some reason on wave 45, the DC went full DC and disconnected me again at just the wrong time. I decided to quit again for 24 hours. I played my defense peer, tried for some Rex kills, realized how dry it was and how much I'm over RNG goals, and then remembered that this level 3 with a Fire Cape, Priest of Peril, and Fremennik Trials is literally my dream account to play on, so this is my only chance. This is likely going to be changed on Wednesday, and it is now going into Monday. I thought about it, and I found there might be just one more solution to make this happen, and if that solution is truly going to work, I have to hop on it now. I've wasted over 35,000 purple sweets and over 100 hours in attempts and testing at this point, and now is my only shot before this could entirely never be possible again. This new option was to literally inquire across all different Airbnbs within an hour radius of me if they have a wired connection to their modem available and if their connection is fiber optic. I finally found one and ended up paying over $300 for 2 nights to stay at this Airbnb. At this point it was Monday night and I had till Wednesday morning at about 5 a.m. before the update. So I headed over there. Little did I know that a tornado about a mile wide and an F4 was coming into the same area I was heading towards, only about 15 miles northwest of me, the Barnsdall tornado.
But until it does, there is a risk of a serious, significant tornado. There is one occurring right now. You can see it really started to rotate. We were talking about this in northern Creek County. Tornado warning was issued.
So I lucked out there. I didn't have to take cover and it was going the opposite direction of my Airbnb, but it was a frightening experience going solo to an Airbnb in a foreign location, and especially while I was doing something on edge with little to no sleep, trying to get it done before a set time period, as well realizing that this is my last attempt on this perfect Priest in Peril and Fremennik Trials account before I start getting 2 stats from wave 15 and wave 30 poisons on average. Luckily I had the news on, I moved some of the furniture around, I moved the desk into the living room of this Airbnb, didn't utilize 90% of the Airbnb, and then set up my tower. I did drive my convertible through a storm with this tower, and with a sort of half setup for a monitor stand. I didn't have a full one, and an old 60 Hz monitor I bought from Facebook Marketplace. Threw these all in my car, reorganized the Airbnb, and finally this was my setup. I literally had Humpty Dumpty and children's books propping up my monitor for a 30-hour session, which I would only sleep 4 hours during, and I would have to get this done before update day, being, like I said, only 30 hours away now. So the tornadoes had passed. I was about on wave 14 now. Luckily that huge storm wasn't going during that important of waves, but we were able to survive yet a tornado and continue down with our new internet connection at the Airbnb. Luckily, this connection proved to be great. Time and time again, I was almost not even used to this good of ping throughout the cave, but I brought my looting bag for that wave I didn't necessarily need to be fit to handle high ping for, and I could just out-eat the 90. Used my explosive potion here on wave 43. Everything was going according to plan. At this point, I was a few hours in and we were pushing time limits. I took a 4-hour nap, had everything set up, got some DoorDash, ate a little bit, was going through a mental health crisis at this point, being alone. I'm not used to being alone, but I persevered through it. I had some anxiety and panic like always, but we got through the task. We were getting through the waves. I was into the wave 50s now. I got through the wave 30 and 15 with just enough XP for this last attempt, and I was even doing some more complex solves. I realized I would have to do on wave 56 and 58 and even 51, but they were possible. I got through all the waves, finally to wave 61 with the last two 180s, where I tick 8 the 360 diagonal right in its line of sight to then recoil off the echo boots onto the 180, both of the 180s, by setting up the lure with a combo ticket and running west southwest of the western rock. Everything was perfect. We had about 2 hours, not even kidding, until the update happened. I didn't know for sure if they would update the boots, but 2 hours until an update where a Reddit post got over 5,000 upvotes, you know, where mains were getting mad that peers were able to wear these things. I would not be surprised if they changed the boot requirements. And so here we were, Jad. I was going to use the Jad lure used on the last level 3 by running around the rock and tick-eating hits. I tick-ate all the Jad hits, stepping in and out each time. Finally, when the healer showed up with this exact lure, I was able to tag the first healer with my longbow, put it back into place, and block all the other healers off of Jad. From here, I could then run in and out of the safe spot, tick-eating Jad for another 30 minutes to finally finish it off with no lag, thankfully to my great Airbnb connection, and with only an hour to spare before the update. And that update did come through. It actually did change the boot requirement to level 75 defense. Insane timing, insane theories, insane wave progression, insane real life hurdles that I had to overcome. I dare say not only was this the most physically and mentally challenging thing I've ever done in this entire game, but I would even say in my entire life, period. I'm super proud I was able to achieve it in the end, and just in the nick of time. Look at this system update coming in. For about an hour afterwards, apparently some people still kept the boots on, but then another hour rolled around after the update and it pushed everyone's boots off. Even people with full banks and full inventories, their boots, look at this clip here, got literally destroyed and sent to Purdue. But yeah, that's because they added a requirement, and it even says, sorry, the boots now have a defense requirement. If there's ever going to be another level 3 combat fire cape with 1 stats, I'm not sure how it's going to be possible, but I'm just glad that I took the effort and used the window of time I had when I knew about the boots and did it while I could and while the game allowed for those boots to be worn by anyone of any defense level. I want to thank you all for stopping by and watching this video today. Once again, when you're watching this, I'll probably be live on Kick, and I'll link my Kick in the description below. I'll be playing this account more. I'll also be playing some Defense Peer for the Defense Saga series ongoing on this channel, although I'll be a little bit more lax on it lately because I do kind of want to focus on this level 3 a bit more, even though I do have some AFK goals on the Defense Peer I'll do on the side. We're going to be focusing on that. We're going to be maybe going for a Bloodhound pet, trying to do master clues on a level 3, some insane goals for this account, maybe some TOB, maybe some hard combat achievements. I'm really looking forward to the progression of this account and making it one of the best level 3s in the game, as it already is a 1-of-1 account, and I'm super excited to play this account. You don't know, this is literally my dream account. Ever since I made that last video on it, which is also in the description below, that's all I've been thinking about, and how cool it would be to have this account with a fire cape on it. And here we are today. It just goes to show, if you put your mind and all your effort into a task and never give up until the last second, 9 times out of 10, you know, you're gonna work through it, you're gonna finish it, you're gonna meet your goal. So never give up. I know it's a nerdy circumstance to, you know, use that context and that speech in, but here we are. This is my life. I love this game, and I'm finally getting to play an account I truly will enjoy, alongside another one I do enjoy still, the Defense Peer. I do enjoy, but I don't know, this one's a little bit more appealing to me. The low combat level, the unique goals, the unique things that can be done on it as well. It's not even an Iron Man, which I kind of have been missing that kind of gameplay in my life. So thank you guys. I want to give a shout out to, once again, Obby. He literally set up a router for 3 hours and helped me look at the error codes on my modem. I want to give a shout out to all the people in the Discord who were there to just emotionally support me and tell me to keep going and not give up. And they literally made me ungive up twice and finally even suggested the Airbnb idea to me. And I was like, oh, you know what? That sounds just so crazy. It might work. And it did. This has been an adventure. And thank you all for being here to witness this as well. I'll see you on Kick or another YouTube video here soon. Thank you.